Hey, everybody. All right. So I have the daunting task of sharing with you in the next 2 to 5 years in about 20 or 30 minutes. So I'm going to go incredibly quickly. Hopefully you've drank your coffee this morning and you're ready to be, hold onto your seats to get ready for this. So to kick this thing off, I'm going to level set, right? This is a big moment of change. The reason why I spend a lot of my time with the C-suite around the world is because they are all trying to figure out what is going on right now. It is at the core of it because of artificial intelligence, right? It's the word you're going to hear in every single quarterly call of every single company about how they're investing into this space. But I'm here to talk a little bit more about the truth of that. And in the core of that, there's a few things. One is artificial intelligence is only really taking off because of everything before it, right? You can imagine how much our lives change because of the internet, or how different our lives are because of mobile phones, like in the cloud computing capabilities out there. Artificial intelligence is riding that wave, and it is moving faster and faster because of it. But it is also not really artificial intelligence, which is what you're going to hear about all the time, and at the core of that is really something called machine learning. And I encourage people when they talk about what they're working on that they use those terms, because artificial intelligence comes with a lot of bias and a lot of history that goes behind that. Think of the Terminator movies and everything that you grew up on about what that actually means. Where in reality, machine learning, and the easiest way I explain this to world leaders is say, I give you 5,000 pictures of a cat, I give you one more picture, you can tell me if it's a cat or not, right? It is a whole lot of data, it's doing an evolutionary algorithm to understand a simple question, right? And it's also on this chart, which is why I love sharing this one, is it's totally wrong, because we started in artificial intelligence thinking we understand the human brain back in the 60s and the 70s, where we understood computers and everything that was going to happen. And I can tell you today we still have fundamentally no idea actually how the human brain works. We're actually working on a project with DARPA and the US government called the Human Brain Project, where they are mapping out a cubic millimeter of the brain down to the atom level, because we still have no idea how the human brain works. And that project is going to take 17 years. So we are a long ways away from having that kind of human intelligence. So when you think about the robots coming for your jobs and everything that you see on every sci-fi show in the world, just tell you don't worry about it, right? It's machine learning. It's a simple thing. It's like having 500,000 toddlers answer a question for you. It can do some cool stuff with that, but it is not going to be the robot that comes for our jobs. All right. But with that, you can do some really powerful things. And I show this slide specifically to talk about the level of difference of what comes into user interfaces nowadays. Because a lot of folks here use Netflix, and they don't know what goes into the depth of that site. When you log into Netflix, you are going to see a different version of the UI compared to every person that you are sitting next to in this room. There are 300,000 different versions of the user interface. It is not just the titles and the genres that you actually like or the algorithm of prediction. It is literally changing fonts and colors and layout and commercials and pre-roll and everything. And it's a team called the 60-second crew. And there are 100 people, and their job is to get you to make a choice in 60 seconds on Netflix. And they now can even do it down to the artwork that you actually see. So if you see Stranger Things, their sci-fi show and their drama show that just came out with a new season just recently, you will see one of 86,000 different pictures, and they are choosing the picture that matches you. So do you like the romance or the sci-fi or the D&D or the monsters and everything else that comes in that? That's the picture you're going to see, and they can take that across titles. So if you see Uma Thurman in Kill Bill or in Paycheck and you liked those movies, then when you see Pulp Fiction, it is her picture, not John Travolta's, right? And they are specifically using this information to, again, make you make a choice. But the key thing also is here is the massive change moving from predictive to what we call prescriptive. And that is the difference where this interface is not trying to figure out what you want. That's why when you log into Netflix, you do not see the title that you are actually going to watch, because that would be the 5-second team, and that doesn't actually provide value for Netflix. They want you to understand all the amazing things that they have bought and spent hundreds of billions of dollars on. They want you to engage into Netflix and enjoy Netflix, which is why it takes you 60 seconds to find the next episode of the thing that you actually want to watch. And again, that's the move. We're using machine learning not to be predictive of users, but to prescribe them on a path that creates value for the company. Amazon does the exact same thing, and I love sharing this because a lot of people don't know this. If you see in Amazon it says customers like you bought this item, it's actually a flat lie. As of about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that algorithm is actually said that you spend more time in Amazon. They already have all the money in the world. They don't care if you buy anything else. They just want you to spend time loving Amazon, which is why they have one of the highest satisfaction rates of any company out there. Again, they're trying to prescribe you to a path to become more professional or more beneficial for the company. All right, so I get asked quite a lot, what does the future look like as a futurist here at Salesforce? But it's also from my background. I worked with Peter Schwartz, which some of you probably know, who is our Chief Future Officer at Salesforce. He headed up scenario planning here at Shell for several years. And we wrote the movies like Minority Report and War Games and Sneakers and all these future views. So we get asked, what is it actually going to look like? In the next couple of years, we talk about this idea of being connected to everything around you is going to vastly change. I mean, this is everything from the IoT world, but it is also how companies are going to try to correct and connect you directly. They actually say that most adults in this room have about 100 different accounts that you manage online and all the different logins and passwords that you have to try to manage. The World Economic Forum says it's going to be about 200 to 300 in the next 2 to 5 years, because every single company wants you to do things like install the Shell loyalty app or everything else that's out there, because they want to have a direct connection to you to try to save themselves from the brand changes and loyalty changes that are going on in the world. And we're going to see that massive change where every company wants to have a one-on-one relationship. But we're also going to see machine learning really transform this world. And that is why it is called the fourth industrial revolution. It is literally a revolution. It is going to have massive moments of change. And in that, we're going to talk about a few things over the next couple of slides, really about how we're going to automate some tasks and things that we've never really wanted to spend our time doing, but now we can do with machine learning. We're going to talk about how the humans can be augmented with these kind of capabilities and new things we've never been able to even do possible before. So I'm going to run through some myriad of examples. And the first one is a company that was one of the top startups in Israel called NickSAR. And if you don't know about this, you should sign up for it. It's a pretty cool company, and what they do is they provide you a dash cam service, right? So you drive around in your car, and this thing does everything from normal navigation, but then it also does things like, you know, if you're in an accident, it automatically sends that to an insurance agent. If you're pulled over by the police, they'll actually record the whole conversation. If somebody in NickSAR, a few cars in front of you, slams on their brakes, your car will tell you to slow down. There's a lot of things that come from this capability. And it is fairly cheap. It used to be free, but we found out last night that they changed it. You have to pay for the actual dash cam now, so it's about 70 bucks. But the core difference here is, what is the value to this company? Why was this valuable for all the customers? Well, I don't want to have to deal with my insurance agent, and if I'm in an accident, I don't have to worry about the damage to my car. But on the reverse, they now have the best mapping data on the planet, because there are only so many Google cars with cameras on them that can drive around, where you have hundreds of thousands of people driving around with a live streaming camera. So they now have some of the best mapping data on the planet. And you can think about that marriage of data, right? Thinking about how they're going to use these cool capabilities and all the things that we can get for free, like the Google Suite and the rest. What are they getting out of that is the value of that information. We're going to see a lot of things happen using machine learning that are going to allow us these new kinds of relationships. We're also going to see from augmenting capabilities just this new wave of virtual reality and augmented reality. I share this because we always get asked about these devices, and for a long time people thought they were like 3D TVs or Segways and everything else that was a fad that kind of went away. But in reality, it's just to share with you, it takes a long time. These are very hard problems, right? The cell phones that you all have in your pocket, they started the size of a suitcase. They were for the military and the rich. They were thousands of dollars. It took a long time to get to the valuable size. Virtual reality is actually taken off much faster than augmented reality, and that's because it's a much easier problem, but also it's the first thing that we're going to see roll out quickly because it's easy. The new Oculus Rift S and the Quest that just came out are selling in massive numbers. They're supposed to sell about 1 million copies within the first 6 months, and it's because the high demand there, it's easy. Everything up to this point, if you ever use virtual reality, augmented reality, you have to have a technician standing next to you, a computer worth thousands of dollars, it's clunky, it's blurry, etc. The new Oculus headset, you can pay 300 bucks, you give it to the kids, they can play in the backseat of the car. Like, that's the first time that's ever happened. That will make it show up in a much faster way. And also in this space, augmented reality, the new headset, the HoloLens is just coming out at the end of the year for Microsoft. In that landscape, we're going to see some massive changes, but it's going to be in small windows, right? Their first examples right here are really around the healthcare industry and in the manufacturing industry, and that's really where we're going to see augmented reality take off. It will take a longer time to figure it out, so we start seeing this everywhere. And also, just really quickly, I have to show this because it's always an eye-opener for people. I actually had first-hand experience of this 2 years ago because I had to have brain surgery in Southern California. I had a hard time sleeping. My left ear would start ringing. I go to the doctor and he'd tell me it's stress, it's coffee, it's Netflix, it's everything that we don't sleep, just don't worry about it. My wife said, get the MRI, because they always get the test. And they found a small tumor on my hearing and balance nerve called an acoustic neuroma. And I went to have surgery in one of the most expensive rooms in the entire world. It's the newest Kaiser Permanente hospital in Southern California. I had 2 neurosurgeons working on me with HoloLens glasses that were using it during a 12-hour surgery to have all the information in front of them. A 3rd doctor in New York was watching in virtual reality to learn the surgery because it's such a rare cause. I was woken up in an artificial intelligence Stryker bed that would mold and move me throughout the night and understood how I slept and made sure I was in the right positions. And this is a surgery that if I had just done this 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been in the hospital for 4 weeks of recovery. I would have spent 6 months at home in recovery, and I would have had a 25% chance of losing my hearing, a 10% chance of losing facial strength. Nowadays, with one of the most expensive rooms on the planet, but just to show you where we're at from a technology perspective, I was in and out of the hospital after a 12-hour surgery in 3 days, and I was back in the office in 4 weeks, and that's from brain surgery, right? So we're gonna see crazy changes when we use these technologies at massive scale to do things that we've never been able to do before. Another company that I love talking about, because it's probably the most futuristic company I've met before, is a company called Konica. And this is a jargon that I'm going to try to explain really quickly. This is the first Wetware bioprocessor chip. And what that actually means is this is 118 living neuron cells from 4 different types of animals that are grown to electronically wire to a processor. So this thing about the size of a hockey puck can smell better than anything on the planet. And they use this for everything you can imagine. It was in the Middle East as a DARPA project to actually understand smelling of explosives, but then move this forward out of the military. It's now in commercial use. You can go to Toronto. There's a Konica hallway in the airport where you just walk straight into the airport. You skip all the normal metal detectors and TSA and all the rest of that kind of stuff because this thing knows if you have anything on you're not supposed to. And they're actually using this in hospitals in the Bay Area because this device can smell 8 different types of lymphoma. So you will walk into the office and they will say, okay, you need to make an appointment with the doctor. We're actually smelling signs that you might have cancer, right? We're getting to crazy levels of using biology actually compared with technology. And you can imagine we're going to see some crazy things around this. Even in the industry within Shell, we've talked about using this to smell chemicals that are releasing in the air that people can't see and all the stuff that you need to make sure that people are safe. This is going to allow them to understand the smell of a plant. And it's going to change, again, how we think about looking at technology and data that we've never seen before. There's also things that we're going to see as new devices that are kind of changing the world, and this is one called the Alter Ego headset from MIT. And what this thing does is this thing allows you to talk to your voice assistant or towards your phone without opening your mouth. Because they have found out if you think about saying something, but you don't open your mouth, it actually still travels down your jawline, and it actually reaches your lips because you need to be ready to say it. And this thing can read it with a 96% accuracy rate. So you can have a whole conversation with Alexa while you're walking around and not opening your mouth, or you can talk to people in the London Tube without talking to the people next to you. And you can imagine this is going to change everything from quiet call centers to be able to have intense conversations in areas never before. Again, it's an important step of us just figuring out how to interact with the human body. This is not the invasive stuff of Neuralink and Elon Musk and the rest where they say, we're going to merge with machines. This is more importantly just new interfaces that we're going to try playing around with as we understand the body more. And then the example I share in every single presentation, no matter where I am in the world, because it's been huge in my life, and it is also probably one of the best combinations of everything I've been talking about, is a project called Autism Glass. I have 2 boys that are 9 and 11 years old that are actually autistic and on the spectrum, and we have a project with Google Glass and Stanford Medical Research Lab where my kids wear Autism Glass to school. And what this does is it has facial recognition, it has eye contact detection, and it has emotional detection. So when my kids look at me, it says, Dad is happy. It is amazing. I could spend all day talking about this. You ever want to hear about it, come up to me, I'll tell you all about it. It is phenomenal. This is going from like hundreds of thousands of hours of really expensive therapists with flashcards trying to understand, if they're, happy or sad, or a kid falls down on the playground, like really what's going on. They learn immediately. And all the things are recorded, they go straight to the therapist. It's phenomenal. And again, this is what you can do when you start taking these combinations of machine learning and augmented reality and everything else and tie it together. And the perfect example of this also is what you're going to see come out in the Christmas of 2020 timeframe, which is the new version of Google Glass. When Google Glass first came out, they failed for all kinds of reasons. It melted the side of your head, it lasted 30 seconds, and it was a fashionable thing to wear, which nobody in this room is going to use for fashion. But at the same time, what actually happens is that people need help communicating. So they have the business version of Autism Glass, which I can assure you everybody in this room is going to buy, because I am one of those people. I am terrible at names and faces. If I had something when I walked up to you and it had LinkedIn data that said your name and your job title, I would spend thousands of dollars buying that headset, and that is what everybody in this room is going to do, and it's actually the practical version of this, right? So again, we're going to start seeing these things actually change how we think about using technology with us. All this playing together, again, we're going to change from the app and this concept that we're going to have individual connections, and if you play it out 2 to 5 years, you will have an executive assistant, right? You think of a CEO, they have an executive assistant, they make them vastly more productive in managing their schedule and their travel, they're letting them know the person's name they're about to meet, they're planning their day. Have that capability for everybody in a company with a digital assistant, productivity changes, right? Things will move vastly quicker, and you can imagine what our life will look like when everybody gets one of those people. So in the next couple of years, I get asked, like, what is it going to actually look like? And I'll give a little story here. You can imagine that you said to Alexa normally, hey, I need to wake up at 8 o'clock here to make it this morning. But nowadays, Alexa's a little bit smarter. You don't have to tell it. It knows your schedule. It also knows that you need to know some stuff. There was a quarterly call of a competitor, or your kids in college posted something they shouldn't be, or you need to understand what's going on in the government, or whatever. And they also learned you like to sleep in, or you didn't sleep well at night, so it wakes you up earlier and says, okay, it's time at 7:30. I'm going to talk you through your day, just like an executive assistant does. I would plan to move you forward in the right steps. But then also, Amazon, which has gotten to the healthcare industry, says your doctor wants to check up on you, because we're going to change. Instead of going to the doctor as an episodic commercial, we're going to have it where they come back to us and say, it's now time to talk to you. I sent you an apple, and I want you to eat an apple that they've given you because it has an ingestible sensor in it, and he's going to monitor you throughout the day. And you're going to go about your day getting it in different ways. I've met with most of the CEOs of every Fortune 500 car company. I've even met with Mercedes Benz and the rest. They're all trying to figure this out of changing the environment of the car. When we really get to tier 3 autonomous vehicles in the next couple of years, it will fundamentally change this into a retail environment, an entertainment environment. I've seen treadmills in cars. I've seen things where ladies can get their nails done in cars. I've seen massages. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff start to show up in this space. Because again, if you're not paying attention forward, you can do some valuable stuff with that. But we're also going to see that ingestible sensor tells you your fridge is empty, and also you're a little cranky, you didn't eat the right amount of food this morning. Go grab a banana in the Amazon Go store, right? And that's going to be the kind of stuff where you walk in, walk out, and facial recognition handles that. And you can imagine walking into a Shell station and never handing them cash, never telling them who you are, because we already know how to charge you. You should be able to tell that information and just let me get in and out as fast as possible. And during that process, your health assistant will be listening in and say, you might want to check this out. Your neighbors like this. Your diet plans are really trying to aim for this, and trying to be an assistant. But at the end of the day, you walk out of that grocery store and you have Girl Scout cookies that are all trying to ruin your diet plans. And you would think in a dystopian society where your human assistant or your voice assistant is actually trying to tell you you're not allowed cookies. That's not going to happen. That's human nature. But what's really going to happen is it's going to listen in and say, like, okay, we're going to figure out a fun way for you to burn the calories off in another way. Celebrate, enjoy the cookies, have fun. Right? And then at the end of that time frame, your doctor actually checks up on you and says, we've been looking at you the last couple of weeks. I've now been looking at you all day. You're doing fine. You don't sleep well, because nobody sleeps well. But in that landscape, we're going to check up on you in a couple of weeks. And again, the doctor's going to reach out to you. You're not going to reach out to the doctor. That's going to completely change the next 5 years. And at the end of the day, you're going to do something fun to work out, because, my God, gyms are terrible, right? They're boring. They're self-conscious environments where you're trying to run on a treadmill by yourself and doing all these things. People want the social entertainment environments, and this is the first shot of the Black Gym, which is in New York, which is actually, you want to have fun, you run around playing Fortnite with your friends, you run from the zombies on a treadmill in The Walking Dead using virtual reality, and you have fun. Right? Because they figured out nobody's going to the malls, nobody's going to the movie theaters. I need to actually get you out of the house. Millennials and Gen Zs want to have a healthier lifestyle. It's just got to be entertaining. And that's, again, where we're going to start using this stuff to have a lot more fun of how we have healthier lifestyles. Because we want them, we just don't have the right nudges to do it. All right. At the core of this is data. You need a whole lot of data to make this possible. And we're going to see a big change where data has a huge amount of importance and people understand the value of it and expect something for it. Right? We talk about data is actually the new oil here in the oil industry, and we talk about the fact that this is a valuable piece of information and people expect something. This is why GDPR and Facebook's in the news and everything else, is because people have finally figured that out. But the thing is, most companies don't give value to them for the data they use, right? There's a lot of things like, you go to Axioms and the other data management platforms out there, they'll say they know thousands of things about you. You're not getting paid for that. And the companies that are going to do a better conversation are going to say, this is what I need from you. If you give me that, I will give you something of value, right? Think of what NickSAR does. An example of that to do really well, though, is you have to understand customers differently. And that's where you get into psychographics, right? That's how you actually make the decisions in your life. It is not that I am a white guy with glasses. I am actually a gamer. I'm an autism dad. I have the capabilities of being a movie fanatic. And there's all these things that actually make me have the decisions in my life. You know that. You can talk to me better and actually have a personalized, customized conversation. A perfect example of this is a car company that I actually love that they did this, is Porsche. And what Porsche did is they have a really hard problem. They have to sell an expensive vehicle that nobody's buying expensive vehicles nowadays, and they need to find their new market. They did their first psychographic study with the NYU University, and what they found out was there's a new market they had never tapped before, because they thought of all the things like it's the guy celebrating the end of his career, it's the guy that wants to look great near the ladies, and it's everything that you think of when you think of a Porsche owner. But the one they'd never known about, which I totally understand, and there's a bunch of dads in the room that understand this too, is the dad that loves to brag in front of his kids. So what they did was they made a Porsche commercial called the Everyday School Bus, where the dad is waiting on the hood of the car, the kids run out, they're all embarrassed, they're covering their faces, the dad is glowing and just loving this moment, and he gets in the car and it drives off and it says the Everyday School Bus. That single advertisement campaign did better than all of 2017 and 2018 combined, because they finally understood a market they had never tapped into before. And again, that's the level of depth you have to understand. All right, we have a problem though. A lot of people don't trust companies, or they don't want a different level of personalization. And there are some people in this room that if I said, hey, welcome here, and I already know your name, and I know your job title, and my glasses, and telling me all this, everybody in the room freaks out and says, I'm in a Black Mirror episode, and this is terrible. Where on the other side of the world, there's the millennial and the Gen Z that expects that, and you have to balance that. You have to know how to handle different types of customers. To do that, you have to have the absolute trust of the customer. And I can tell you this is why Amazon is kind of slowly winning the world, is they have the absolute trust of the customer. Everybody loves Amazon, unless you have to sell on Amazon, but everybody else loves Amazon. And that is because, again, they have the trust of the customer. They put that at the forefront of what they actually focused upon. He actually said, I don't care about profits, I care about winning the customer, because all the money will follow in after the fact. And I show this slide to show you all those brands on the left are smaller combined than Amazon, right? They're a giant, and it's because they own that level of trust. And there's actually a really interesting point about this too, is that they have the trust of the employees. And we'll talk about it a little bit later during the panel and the rest, but we're going to talk about the fact that they allow people to make mistakes. They allow people to have changes in their job. They allow people to move around. And you want to keep innovation as a culture, you have to allow that. All right, China. I can't spend enough time on this, and I don't have enough time to talk about it because I could spend all day on this. If you want just a really quick deep dive, check out AI Superpowers. It's a book that just came out about a month or two ago, and it's one of the most phenomenal books in this space. It's from Kai-Fu Lee, who was the former CEO of Google China. He was the CEO of the Microsoft AI Research Development in China, and he's a really bright guy. So if you really want to get your understanding of what's going to go on in China and how this is going to affect the world, check it out. All right, and in that also you're going to talk about the new effects of biometrics, and we've talked a lot about this, what happens even in the retail environment when we talk about what do you know. In China, this is a picture of a shot. If you were checking out a display on the street, they know everything about you. They know your name, how much money you spent, if you've ever been there before, if this is the first time. They have all that information, because the Ministry of Information does not have the red tape of GDPR and everything else. But that is going to change when we try to figure this out. If you want to do the Amazon Go story, you have to give consent, and we're all going to try to figure that out. But that digital footprint and understanding privacy at a lot of levels is going to fundamentally change. And we have to understand when we talk about the future of retail or the future of what Shell understands about a customer, how do you get consent and how do you allow that kind of information to provide value? Because they're going to expect it even if you don't get consent. And how do you answer that question? We're also going to have a problem of all the different misinformation and fake news and everything else. It's what everybody talks about in the news. People freak out a lot about this, but I tell you, a lot of people freaked out when Photoshop came out because everybody thought all these fake pictures and all this stuff, and I wasn't with that girl, and all that other kind of stuff that came out of Photoshop. There's a generation that's growing up that just knows everything's fake and everything is not going to be real, and I don't trust anything, and they're going to be hardened to it. It's us that are freaking out about it, but it's the younger group that's going to go, yeah, that's not a big deal. I already knew that was all fake. And that's going to change, again, where your expectation is. You grow up with the understanding that I am already being manipulated and lied to. That just becomes a different world. All right. Robot learning is a really big one, and that's really the core of understanding like how these AIs actually train themselves. One of the biggest changes, and Bill Gates actually talked about this being one of the core technologies of the world, is that machines have to be able to train themselves. I do not give a toddler 5,000 pictures of a cat to understand what a cat is. They see 2 pictures and they go, okay, I get cats, I'm done, right? That has to be something that machines can actually do. This guy from OpenAI actually taught a machine to how to handle any object that it is handed and understand all the properties about it, how to throw it, how much it weighs, everything about it. That is going to change how fast machine learning can actually use. And they're going to use this for every algorithm change now at this point. It will train faster and faster and not need the massive amounts of data, which again is something that we're going to have to move forward on. And we're also going to see, it doesn't show up that way great, but also we're going to see these kind of major changes that when you have all these technologies, different emerging markets are going to move very quickly, right? If you think about drone deliveries, which have been going around in China for a while now, they're not really going around in the UK or in Europe. And in the US, we just had our first human heart transplant for the first time ever a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of red tape. But you go to Africa, and they've been using this for a while to use blood delivery and all other kinds of stuff like that. There's a lot of changes that these groups and regions are going to basically leapfrog ahead. And they're going to use this technology to catch up with the rest of the world because they can do it quicker. And the last thing I'm going to end you with is just to guard you against the future. You are going to hear everything in the news, everybody out there freaking out about technology. This is a quote from Time magazine where they talk about the elimination of all service and office jobs. We need basic incomes. We're going to be an artist economy. Everybody has to stream on YouTube for a living. Like, it's just going to be this crazy world. And this is why Westworld and Mad Max and Black Mirror and Terminator and everything is popular right now. But I worked for Peter Schwartz, who was the oldest guy at Salesforce at 73 years old. And again, from the Shell background and everything he's done his entire life, he always kept telling us, it is not a news story. This quote is from 1961 when we still had Russians in the news, and they will be in the news for the rest of existence. And it is also something that we will always try to deal with in any major technology wave. People freak out. It's just what happens in human nature. We've talked about this really cool project with Stanford where they did fMRI scans of the human brain, and they said, where are you at 1 year from now? And what they found out was if you ask that question, personal identification area of your brain shuts off. You actually treat that as a stranger, which is why everybody procrastinate. It's another person's problem. It's why they don't save for retirement, is I'm giving my money to a stranger. And it's why all these technologies come out, all these strangers are going to make bad decisions. They're not going to actually choose the one that has a better lifestyle. I encourage you, think positively about this, right? And that's why, again, using the words AI versus machine learning and the rest, think about these awesome new capabilities, even just like Autism Glass, that have never been possible before and are going to change our world. And that's it. So, thanks.